Hey guys, I hope everyone had a pretty good holiday. For this video, I am going to be talking about zip drives. If you've watched any of my earlier videos, you know I am a big fan of zip drives. Zip drives came out, I don't have the exact year on me, but they did come out in the 90s. They were pretty successful. And what they were, remember this was a time dominated by floppy disks. And your basic floppy disk only really held 1.44 megabytes of data, or whatever, photos, whatever you want to put on it. There were CDRs, you could burn to CDs, but it was still kind of in its infancy. It was still a little expensive, especially the drives. But you know what, even today, where you could buy a huge spindle of CDRWs for a couple bucks, you can find CDR drives at Goodwill for $2. I still like zip drives. And that's just because of their compatibility. They can be made to work pretty much on almost any system. They're really good for vintage machines. As long as you have an NEC V20, which is compatible to an 8088, anything up to I know they work on Windows 7 has support for them. I don't know about 8 or 10, but as far as I know, they'll work from anything from an original IBM PC 5150 with a NEC V20 all the way up to your quad hex core Windows 7 machine. And that makes it just really easy to transfer files around. You got your modern computer and you could just download it, put it on a zip drive, and then transfer it to your old 5150 or machine. And it's just real convenient. I find it more convenient than like burning a zip disk hold 100 megabytes, and that's more than enough for vintage systems for file transfers. And I just find it way easier than like burning 10 megabytes of data to a CD. And that first of all, that takes longer. Second, it's a huge waste. And it's just, even networks, like playing with networks, especially on vintage hardware, it's just more hassle than it's worth. Plus, you have to have a network card that eats up a slot, an ISA slot, or a PCI slot, or whatever. These, you can have them internal, and I'll show you one of those, an internal drive, but a lot of the basic ones are parallel port. And pretty much all your computers have parallel ports. At least your vintage machines. So it's not really eating up any of your ports or your slots. So I really like zip drives. They're just, I know there's some people have a problem with them. I know there's the click of death, but you don't really have to worry about. The discs are so cheap, the drives are so cheap. It's not really a problem. Quality, the media discs. I know there's a page somewhere that talks about which discs are actually more reliable. But anyways, enough of my talking. I know it's boring just staring at nothing, basically. So I'm just going to go on. I'm going to start talking about the various zip drives, at least that I have. And I have a couple interesting ones. So I'm going to start out with this one. So this is kind of your basic. Most of them look like this. This iOmega, who did the zip drive, they love this purple color scheme. I think it's ugly. It clashes. Since you've got most of your computers at the time, retro machines are using that off-white beige. It's so ugly. I have a couple of these. These are cool. These are 100 megabyte zip drives. Most of them are 100 megabytes. There are 250 megabyte drives, and they're compatible with the 100 megabyte, but I think from what I've heard, they're a little bit more. They have a little bit more compatibility problems, and they seem to break down a bit more, at least in my experience. So I like the 100 megabyte versions, and that's more than enough for vintage machines. But I like this one. This one was made, I'm assuming, under license from Epson. It's exactly like the other drives, except it's that off-white beige, off-white color. I don't know if beige is the right word. But yeah, this thing works. It's just a correct color scheme zip drive, and I don't see them too often. I've only found 2 of them so far at thrift stores, but I just like them just because they're color. They're exactly like a regular one, but yeah, the color is more correct. They don't look hideous, and they even have a little schematic. Anyways, these are parallel port, so This should work with any computer with a parallel port. You just in there, and then this goes into your parallel port and power supply. And this is a pass-through, so you can have this connected and you can still have a printer connected if you want to, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's the Epson version. I'll show you real quick too. I bought this whole thing with zip disks for just a couple bucks off a guy from Craigslist. But yeah, here's the discs. Right, you see on this one I just have my DOS benchmarks. So what you need on any of the older, like running through DOS, all you need is a file called guest.exe. And usually, initially I usually put that on a floppy. It'll fit on a 720 kilobyte floppy disk. And you just load that into DOS, and then you hook up your zip drive and you execute it, and it will find your drive and it will assign it a letter, and then there you go. That's really it. It's really that easy. It's just really easy for vintage machines to transfer files. This is what I have in most of my machines. This is an internal drive, so this one actually installs into the machine, and it's very similar to a floppy drive, a regular floppy drive. But on the back, it doesn't use floppy-like connectors. It actually, the setup is more like a hard drive or a CD-ROM drive. So these connect through your IDE drive, IDE. So here's for your IDE cable. It uses the larger 4-pin Molex connector, and you do have to set them to slave, master, or cable select. So, but yeah, it's really easy. These work with IDE controllers. If you don't have built-in IDE, I like to use these for Windows 90X, 98, 95 machines, 486s, 386s. On the really old machines that don't do well with IDE, or you need an 8-bit IDE card that's kind of expensive, I usually go with the parallel versions. But if you can install these, they make file transfers and stuff real convenient for vintage machines. There's also a Scuzzy version, which is a Scuzzy connector. It's a little faster than the IDE ones, but they're kind of uncommon. I do not find them very often. I actually prefer the Scuzzy versions, but these are very common. Speaking of Scuzzy versions, here's that drive I showed everyone earlier. I don't know, this must have been connected to something so people wouldn't steal it at some point. It's like a little steel cable. I haven't been able to cut it, but oh yeah, and these, you can put them like this, or they work like that too. But anyways, this is their more usual color scheme. But if you look in the back, this one's a little different. This is a Scuzzy version. So this is set up to work with Scuzzy, and it has little things to set the number, device number. You can turn on and off Terminator. You can set it to Scuzzy ID 5 or 6. Now, I believe, I believe it's the same. Yeah, it uses the same form as the parallel port, but there are these cards you can get. I don't have one. I think they might only be PC. I don't know. Anyways, this is a Scuzzy version. So, but there are these cards that you can install that actually speed up. There's little Scuzzy controller cards specifically for these versions. You'll see them. They're pretty cheap on eBay. I forget what they're called. They're I don't know. Anyways, there's a lot of versions of these things in general, so I don't have all of them. Here's another. This is the one I use on my Windows 7 machine. Now, this is a newer version. Same thing. It's a 100 megabyte zip drive. You see this has the clear translucent blue color scheme. And this is the one, this is USB. So this is the one I use on my Windows 7 modern machine. So see on the back, very simple, USB thing. Windows 7, I had to do nothing. I plugged this thing in, it was identified, it came up under my computer, and it just works. And it's cool. If I need an old file that's too big for 144 megabyte floppy, I just find it on the internet, put it on my zip drive, and I can easily transfer it to pretty much any of my older computers. Alright, we're almost done here. It's just kind of a quicker video. This is just a boxed one. I picked this up for a couple dollars at a thrift store. So 3 drives in one. Yeah. Expand your hard drive with unlimited capacity, 100 megabytes at a time. So this is just the parallel port zip drive. This is in the box, very similar to what most of them would have came looking like. I got this. This looks mostly complete. Still got. You can feel the installation disc in there. But yeah, you can see there's no switches. This isn't for the Scuzzy version. So this is basically what you would have got. Kind of neat. Okay, now I'm going to show you something I picked up really just a couple days ago. And I'm not going to call it oddware because that's been taken already by several people. So I'm going to come up with something completely and wholly original, and I'm going to call it bizarreware. Let me just pack this back up and then I will show you. Alright, so actually I picked us up for $2 literally last week, and I never knew about these before. I've never heard of them. This is a Fotoshow, and it is a zip drive for your television. It's really odd. I had no idea these things existed. Yeah, it's a 250 version. It works on computers, it works on Macs, and it works on your TV. It even has a remote. It's really bizarre. This couldn't have been too long ago it came out. I'm trying to find a date on it. But anyways, yeah, I haven't even hooked this up to see if it works. 2000, okay, so this came out in 2000. So it's still in an era where this kind of made sense. Let's just take a look at it. It's kind of weird. So it's kind of well made. You got your usual stuff. You got a stand, AV cables, discs. All right. So here's the drive. All right, let me make sure you're seeing. Okay, so here's the drive. Yeah, I mean it's kind of neat. Look, it's a little bit more modern style. It's Zip 250 Fotoshow. It has an eject button. It has a copy button. It also has 2 slots down here for, I believe that's a compact flash slot, and I don't know what this is. Now here's the sensor for the remote. Now from what I read the manual, and unfortunately, if it's hooked up to a computer, it purely works as a 250 megabyte zip drive. That's it, which sucks because it would have been pretty cool to actually get the compact flash compatibility and stuff. But no, this is only if it's hooked up to a television. So if you look at the back, you have your USB port. So that's for if you have it hooked up to a computer to work as a zip drive. You have your power thing, and then you have S-video, and then you have video and audio. So I'm assuming you could put very small video clips on like a zip disk or a compact flash card, then play them on your TV. So I guess this was before it was really, common or easy to hook up computers to televisions. So, there's a little stand, so you could set it up. I guess it kind of complements a media center. I don't know. It's just weird. I haven't tested it yet. I think I'm going to do that in a minute. That's a big power supply. So, yeah. You know what? Check this. Yeah. Look, it's still, I don't think whoever had this used it much. Here's the remote. Looks brand new. Not much to it. This might just be for like viewing. I think its primary purpose was viewing photos on a television. I don't Let's hook this thing up and let's see if it works. Very interesting. Alright, well I have it connected to the TV. It's on AV4. This project was almost killed in its infancy though, because you need the remote to power it on. But unfortunately these batteries are dead, and they're AAA batteries. And I didn't think I had any, and then in one of the drawers I found these. So let's hope it works. There was a little bit of corrosion, so I guess this was used, and one of the batteries, they never took it out and it was corroded a little bit. So let's cross our fingers and hope it still works. Alright, here comes the moment of truth. Yes! It's powered up, and there's something on the TV. So yes, it does seem to work. Okay, please insert a zip disk to use Photoshop. So let me just insert one of the discs that came with it. Let's see what happens. I better take that off. God knows what's on this thing. Okay, so I hear it doing something. It's loading it. Okay. And looks like some random images. Nice. Oh, that's right. I was pointing it at the TV. I have to point it down here. Open, create album, view as, move photos, arrange photos. Hold on, let me choose a theme, delete album. I just want to look and see what they have on this thing. Maybe. Looks like October 2006 this was last used. So, that looks like an XPS. It looks like a logo someone was working on. Open an existing album. Yeah, 2006. All my photos. Okay. There's little sounds. It's like the same thing. Okay. I think I just don't know how to navigate this. Or maybe that's the only picture on it. I think that might be the only picture. Slightly disappointing. Okay. Well, anyways, yeah, that's it. That's that. It works, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I can't see a ton of use for this thing. It's almost like one of those picture frames that you put like digital pictures in and it would rotate through them. It seems like a good idea, but it just never really took off. Yeah, it's bizarreware, because that's completely original. Bizarreware. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video on zip drives and various zip disks and whatnot. Interestingly more useful than you might think for retro machines. So if you're making a retro rig, consider tossing in a zip drive. You might find them very useful. So again, thanks for watching. Oh, okay, I figured it out. There's a button on here. It's not really focusing. It's this one. It's called Photo Grid. And you go into the album, and it did bring up a bunch of random, like cactus pictures. I live in Arizona, so this is sort of expected. Yeah, just a bunch of cactus photos. So it works. It does what it's supposed to. There's an edit button, too. I mean, it doesn't look horrible. It looks okay. I mean, it's going through composite, and this is a tube HD TV, and it actually looks pretty decent for what it is. So, alright. Alright, look, you even get little editing things, like you can remove red eye, you could crop, and then save it. So I guess it's kind of neat. You can set it up like a slideshow. There's a slideshow button on here. Okay, anyways, I've spent more time than I probably should have on this weird thing, so again, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos coming in the future.